It's about training national assessors. It's a good opportunity for the assessors to get a good understanding of what's involved in the training. Essentially, it's about the learning process and the learning style, so to look at those particular aspects and consider their learners, that they're not all particularly academic, that they'll have different learning styles. So we talk about all of those and consider the different ways that we can reach people and the different methods that will suit people's learning styles. It also requires them to prepare for delivery, so that means to look at the competency standard again, because that's the critical document always. Look at what needs to be taught. There's a range of variables within the competency standard which gives a trainer some scope to consider what they want to include in their training, what's relevant to the participants in the context that they're in. So they can prepare their delivery, they need to put together their training plan, and that can be challenging for some people because the training plan revolves around everything being timed. So having a chunk of time with particular topics that need to be covered, how do you break those topics down, what's relevant to train within those topics, and then we need to apply time limits to every one of them. Otherwise we go off track and we can lose track of our day and then we don't get through all of the material. So this can be a really interesting activity for participants because it gets them to compartmentalise everything and allocate a time to it and make sure that they cover all their material. Once they've created their training plan, we also talk about training methods, so the different sorts of methods for delivery. So based on the types of learners that they might have in the room, whether or not the competency standard dictates that an observation might be suitable, oral questions, written questions, a project, third party. There's all sorts of different methods that we can use for within our training. So the deliverer or the trainer needs to consider which ones would be most suitable in their training plan for the time frame that they've got.
Learning process is an individual process. Everybody has different learning styles. So we have to discuss of the learning process in the journals, and then we divide it in group, and then at the end, from what we summarize is, people normally start with the motivation, either coming from the career advancements or the self-fulfillment, to think that they would like to learn. And then secondly, we need to identify what we already know, what we must know, or what we should know. And once we start to identify this, and then we try to bridge the gap of what we have, and then what we lack, what we need to get more. And then after that, now we start to get the knowledge and the skill, which is coming from is going to the learning style and the ways of learning, which is of course different from person to person, or from knowledge or from the skill. Like we also talking about the experiential learnings, the practical learnings that we have to participate, so we can get the knowledge and the skill. After that, we also have to discuss understanding the outcomes of the learning, like why do we learn and what do we get from that. So at the end, we will start with the motivation and then bridging everything, and then to meet the achievements, or which is the goals of the learnings.
He teach us about the funny game, which is reflect after teaching and motivation how to deliver the training program to the national assessor.
The fun one is a game of the Kahoot games, like it's online games that the Quinton, the trainers, introduced to us. Actually, today is the second phase from being the national assessor to be a trainer of the national assessor. So many activity has to be introduced. This is a really good activity that we can join, and we can compete each other, and we play to the games. Like we have lots of questions, and then we have to compete each other, and then have to answer as fast as we can. And then at the end, we will see the outcome. And of course, this is one of the great activity that I believe many of us can use it.
The purpose of this game is just to let the participant or the trainee feel awake and provide the strategy of doing icebreaker to the participant that they can impress their feeling or the motivation of learning and training, how they catch up about the instruction that the trainer have provided to do.
Then they need to actually conduct the training. So they put in an incredible amount of effort. It's only 15 minutes. Some of our participants will put in 3 days of work for 15 minutes. It's quite an eye-opener for them because they then need to consider that was 15 minutes, it took them 3 days. So if they have a whole day of training or a whole week of training, suddenly the preparation time is something that they seriously need to consider. Okay, so then they need to conduct the training. Some cases they'll do that in front of their peers, which can always be nerve-wracking for them, particularly if they haven't had a lot of training experience. But most people film it, so it gives them the opportunity to review their own training and see how they performed and anything that they might need to change in the future. So they get a short 15-minute role play where they need to conduct training. And then once they evaluate that training with the participant, then they need to indicate what is the next step for them. They need to consider whether or not they've effectively facilitated the training process. Some trainers will, when they're delivering, will get lost in PowerPoints or videos, and it can become quite dry or mundane and people switch off. So sitting in front of a computer with 150 PowerPoints is not really stimulating training. So it gives the participants a good opportunity to think about how they'd like to deliver and whether or not they've got the engagement of their audience and they're maintaining that engagement. So it's a good opportunity for them to go through those processes. So once the training's finished, because in this activity they're only doing one performance criteria of the training of national assessors, over the course of the whole class completing the performance criteria, we actually complete the whole, both elements of the National Assessor Training Program, which is great because a lot of participants will film the whole lot of it to get ideas about how they want to put together their own training. But it gives them the opportunity to have a look at the whole course or the whole program from element 1 right through element 2. So they tend to enjoy that. And then they hand over to the next person who needs to conduct a role play, and it all flows through. So everybody has a turn and they learn a lot from it.
I think after they get the training, being a master of the assessor or science of trainers, I think they go back and then we bring this, all of them, and then discuss what we need to do. I think the Ministry of Tourism also work together with the MIATP also. I think so that's why how they get the standard. So maybe not from the Master of Assessor, not from the Master of Trainer, but I think it would be the minimum requirement that they have to push more to the Thai people, so we can have better qualities of NT and NA.
A Master Assessor would be somebody who is familiar with the MRA, that they understand the bigger picture of what the ASEAN project is putting together. A Master Assessor is going to have a good understanding of the units of competence, how to break down a competency standard, how to assess, even if it's across any of the 6 labour divisions. So there's more than likely they'll be assessing outside their area of expertise. So they need to be confident and competent in their role so that they can cross over those labour divisions and be able to assess comfortably in different countries, in different locations. So they will be the best of the people that we put through, and they're the future. They will then go on and train the national assessors and will be the people who set the standard, and will essentially at this point help with the success of the whole ASEAN Master Assessor program.